Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel, the Bronson Sky Library. So recently a friend of mine asked me to put together a list of my favorite books, or rather just books that I enjoyed that I think she would really enjoy. And she also mentioned to me that she really likes standalones because sometimes fantasy series can just be tiring. And not necessarily tiring, but just long fantasy series it can be a lot. And because of that, it gave me a video idea. So today I am going to list off 5 fantasy standalones of books that I read that I really enjoyed, and I think you guys will too. So, yeah. And I'm not gonna lie, but most of these books are already pretty popular, and they're probably books that you have either already read or you have already tried to read them and you just didn't like them or you DNF'd them, but I still want to share them with you just in case you haven't read them and you just need a little more convincing. So the first standalone that I want to mention is Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I read this book not too long ago, so I don't really want to spend too much time on it because I've already mentioned it in a couple videos. But what this book is about is it's about this girl who takes over her father's money lending business because he's just very terrible at it and is unable to collect debts, which has left him and his family close to poverty. And once she takes over this business, she soon starts to get this reputation that she can spin silver into gold. And that reaches the lord of this Fey kingdom, and this lord decides to use this power, her power, to his advantage. And it's amazing. I loved it. Like, this book is so good. It's a multiple POV story, and I enjoyed all of the perspectives. I think I liked Miriam's perspective the most, but overall, all of the other perspectives were not a disappointment. The writing was beautiful and atmospheric, and the story as a whole was, I think, brilliantly done. And what I appreciated about this book is that it's a Fae book, but it felt different from other mainstream Fae books that are out there right now, and I loved that. So if you're someone who loves books with beautifully written prose or is very atmospheric, pick this up because it is really good. It's like all of those things and you won't regret it because I definitely didn't. So yeah, go check this out. So the next standalone that I want to mention is an extremely popular one, and that is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And yes, again, I know this is still pretty popular, and it seemed as if everyone was picking it up when it first came out, and so you as the viewer have probably either already read it or have heard about it over and over and over again. But I loved it, and I want to talk about this. And this list is essentially just a list for my friend, and I know for a fact that she has not read this, so yeah, that's why I'm talking about it. But anyway, Addie LaRue is an adult fantasy romance where the main character, Addie, makes this deal with the devil back in France of 1714. And the deal she makes is that she promises this darkness, this devil, that she will give her life to him when she doesn't want it anymore. So she essentially gets to live forever until she gives up her soul. And the kicker is that she goes throughout life with no one ever knowing who she is, like remembering who she is and remembering her name, until one day someone does remember who she is, and that's basically what the story and the premise is. And that is such a good premise. I think that is one of the coolest premises ever. And that's something that V.E. Schwab is a master at, is coming up with very unique and extraordinary ideas or premises for her books. It's just the execution of those ideas that can be a hit or miss for some people, and that's what I heard about Addie LaRue, is just that. It's an extraordinary and very unique premise. It just didn't, the execution just wasn't there for a lot of people. But for me personally, I thought the execution was great. So V.E. Schwab has done this certain style in a couple of her books already, where she does this split timeline. So one chapter will take place in the year of 1714, and then the chapter after that will take place in like 2013, and then the next chapter after that will take place in 2015, and the chapter after that will take place in like 1862 or something like that. So it's like this split timeline, and she does that throughout the entirety of this book, and I thought that was brilliant. I thought that was perfect, especially for the premise of this book. I just think that execution was so well done. She did it so well. I thought it was brilliant. I will say though, since this book does go throughout the history of the world through the eyes of the character Addie, I do wish we had gotten a lot more history than we did, but other than that, I absolutely loved this. I thought this book was amazing, and I loved it, and you should all read it. And if you have already read it, then please tell me your thoughts. Next up is one of my favorite standalones, and that would be Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. Guys, this book is so good. This is definitely one of my favorite Sanderson books that I've ever read because of how good it is. It is amazing. And I know that there are plans for a sequel to be made for this book, but since it was first made into a standalone, and as it sits now, it's still a standalone, I just decided to put this on the list because it's one of my favorites. But what Warbreaker is about, it's about these two sisters who happen to be princesses, and the older sister, Vivenna, is raised to become the God King's wife to hopefully forestall the inevitable war. And then there's the younger sister, Ciri, who is not raised like that. But the younger sister ends up angering her father, which results in him sending her, Ciri, instead of the older sister, Vivenna. And that's basically where the story begins. And it's magnificent. It is so good. I love it so much. It has a very, very unique magic system, and it has to do with using breath and drawing upon colors in everyday objects. And it has this really cute romance in it, and it has amazing character work. And the world building is just top notch. Like, seriously, guys, this book is so good. Everyone should read it. I'm going to shout out to the rooftops for everyone to read this book because of how amazing it is. And also, there's a character named Lightsong, and he's such an amazing character. Seriously, so good. And he alone should be reason enough for you to read this book. He's currently in what you'd call a midlife crisis, and his journey of trying to work through that is very endearing, and I loved it. I absolutely love his character arc in this book. It is so good. And I bet you would too. I bet you would love that story arc too, so you should just read it. Okay, thank you. Alright, so the fourth one that I want to mention is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. So similarly to Warbreaker, this now has a novella that goes along with it, so I guess you could say that it's not a standalone anymore, but I'm still talking about it. So this book is about a girl who is determined to become what you call a warden. So essentially she's a glorified librarian, and these wardens are charged to protect the kingdom from these books or these grimoires. And the reason why they are charged to protect them from these grimoires is because these grimoires have this power, and that when they are provoked, they turn into these like grotesque monsters that just go around wreaking havoc everywhere, and they just don't want that. And then one day one of the library's most dangerous grimoires gets released, and our main character Elizabeth is blamed, and so now she has to fix it. And that's basically what this story is about. This book was really, really fun. I had a blast when I first read it. It had this fairy tale-esque feel to it, and I loved that, and it felt super whimsical. And I really enjoyed our main character Elizabeth and her love interest Nathaniel, but I also really enjoyed the side character Silas, who added this dark, mysterious vibe to the story that I absolutely adored. The writing was also very well done, in my opinion. I liked Margaret Rogerson's prose a lot. She writes in a way that makes me want to read more. So that's why I bought her, I don't know if you can see, but I bought her book Vespertine because I just really want to read everything that she writes, because her writing just sucks me in. It's really, really good. If you're a fan of whimsical YA fantasy with some romance, this book is definitely for you, and I think you should check it out. And then the last book that I want to talk to you about is a middle grade book called The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. So my first initial thought when I started reading this book was, wow, this has such a unique writing style. I don't know if I'm gonna end up liking this. But the writing quickly swept me off my feet. I ended up loving the story, the writing, and just the book as a whole. So this book is about this town where they will leave a baby as an offering to the witch that lives in the forest once a year, in hopes that this sacrifice will keep the witch from terrorizing them. And what they don't know is that the witch is very kind, and she has no idea why they're giving up these babies. So what she does is she takes these babies and she will nourish them and then feed them starlight, and then give this baby to a family in a neighboring town. But then one year she accidentally feeds the baby moonlight instead of starlight, which gives this baby some magical powers, and so the witch decides to raise her as her own. And I thought this book was a very lovely, lovely coming-of-age story with beautifully unique writing and storytelling, with lots of different kinds of characters, like dragons, witches, a girl with magical powers, and just regular human folk like us. And it's just really fun. And it also gives a lot of people topics to talk about and have conversations with others about, which surprisingly I find a lot of middle grade books that are like that, where it gives you, as the reader, a lot to think about while also giving you a fun little fantasy story. So if that sounds fun to you, I highly recommend this book. I remember absolutely loving this when I read it, and I still think about it sometimes. I don't have a copy of it myself, hence the little picture here, but I definitely need to get a copy so I can have it myself, because I absolutely love this book. Like, again, I still think about it sometimes. And yeah, I just really love middle grade books, and I think people should read them more often. Well, fam, those are some of the standalones that I love, and I think you guys should read as well, and to give a try. Let me know in the comments if you have read them and what your thoughts on them are, or if they're on your TBR. And I will see you guys next time. Alright, bye! Yeah, do you see me?
Yeah, it's you.
That is me.
It's a TV.
It's kind of like a TV, yeah.
I did watch something on that TV.
Yeah,
It's a tiny one.
It is a very tiny one, yeah.